It always has to crash. Always. Come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. There it is, there it is. Okay. Ah, God, okay. It isn't a true gift stream that has a part, doesn't have a part 2. Thanks, Pike. I know this is frustrating. I sometimes, like, I wish they would fix this streaming program so it wouldn't constantly crash every single time I stream. It's so frustrating. But we're back. It's okay. We're gonna color. It's gonna be fine. Everything's great. I'm fine. You're fine. Everybody's fine. Ah, shoot. Missed that spot. Hang on. No, I want... Ugh. Ugh. Gosh. Darn thing. Alright. It's okay. We're great. Everything's great. Everything's great. Everything's great. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Everything's good. Okay, I need the blue. Sure. This is for sale. Okay. Doing text on clothes is hard. And then I need to do that outline of those kidneys. Clothing patterns are difficult. There we go. Alright. Clothing design. Nailed it. Alright. Ah, I forgot his gloves. Oh, kill me. Ah, okay. Is the same program you're using to recording speed prints on the iPad, or is it a different app? I use the same art program, but I don't like how it records my art. I'm using Mobcrush to do this stream. Procreate does allow you to do time lapses, but those don't. You can't stream those. You can't stream within Procreate, as far as I'm aware. And I'm using Mobcrush because it is the only one I have ever gotten to work. And unfortunately, it is. While it crashes constantly, it is the best working one I have. So, you know. Dang it, I gotta undo all these nails I did. These were such nice nails. Yeah, I draw with Procreate and I record, or I do streams with Mobcrush. And I record just using my iPad screen recorder when I do videos. The time lapses on Procreate aren't low quality. It's just exporting them and then uploading to Twitter are low quality, unfortunately. If you actually have your settings on Procreate to do time lapses in high quality, they are very high quality time lapses. if your time lapse if your time lapses are low quality when you export them, I would recommend going into your Procreate settings. There's a setting in Procreate where you can change it to where the time lapses are recorded and exported in higher quality, if that helps. Even then, when you try to upload them to Twitter, they're going to get compressed to shit. What supplies do you use for traditional art? None, because I don't really do traditional art. If I ever do traditional art, it's always just basically with a pencil. I actually don't really like real life painting and stuff that much. Or traditional, I should say. Why did I say real life? I don't know. Non-digital. I'm the person those traditional's the only real art. I'm their worst nightmare. I only do digital. Okay, what is the color of that strap? Because the liner in this is red. I'm going to just make it this. Okay. Okay. Zodiac, have you seen the Cats trailer? We're not gonna talk about the Cats trailer. I don't want to talk about the Cats trailer. It is something else. All I can say is don't y'all miss the days when Hollywood would actually go all out with making costumes and props for things instead of just relying on cheap CGI for literally everything. I remember those days. I like those days. That's all I'll say about it. Well, it's like, you know what I would have loved to see? I would have loved it. Like, I think it would have been brilliant if they actually did the musical, but they actually had everyone in costumes and makeup to emulate the feeling of the actual musical it's based on. But instead, no, they just had to use really weird, really creepy CGI because CGI is cheaper and easier, even if it looks creepy as fuck. I'm still gonna see it though because it looks like a bizarre trip. Anyway. I will say the creepy CGI has a weird charm of it, but not like the charm I think they were going for. It has the charm of being a bizarre drug trip. Oh yeah, CGI is great. It's a fantastic tool. I just wish that A, people would just acknowledge that CGI and animation are exactly the same thing, because some people seem to act like it's two totally different things, but CGI is just a different kind of animation. And B, I just wish people would actually, like, I wish studios would actually not just use it because it's cheaper and easier, because that's the main reason why studios use it nowadays. That's why they use 3D and CGI animation rather than 2D, because it's cheaper and it's easier and it's faster, rather than actually caring about the quality of the work. And like if it looks like, rather than like Spider-Verse is an exception because they actually took it and they made their own style with it. They made it something different. They made it something unique. You know, and like so stuff like that is obviously admirable, but stuff like the you know, like other stuff that uses it where it's like, well, we could have made this 2D, but we didn't. You know, like we just made it 3D because it's cheaper and we don't want to bother all the work that goes into 2D animation, you know? I mean, obviously, and of course, you obviously do have to, you have to use CGI and 3D animation if you're doing anything with real people, because because otherwise, if you use 2D, it's going to look too. You can still do it, but it's going to look cartoony, and that is a fact. If you want something to look real and animate it, it has to be CGI. You can't make something look real in a real world setting without it looking cartoony and jarring in 2D animation. But that's besides the point. Not saying you can't. I mean, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is like one of my favorite movies, so you know. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying if you're going for realistic, you have to use CGI, which is fine. I'm totally fine with that. It's just like I just hate it when studios opt to use 3D animation because it's cheaper and faster and less hassle, rather than going for makeup or going for 2D animation. That's all I'll say about it. I've already talked about how I feel about remakes in general. I have a video about that if you want to go watch it. I don't really want to go on a whole tangent about remakes again. Just kind of sick of talking about them at this point. I'm just sick of seeing them and I'm sick of talking about them at this point. I need more views anyway because YouTube is just kind of like sucking everyone's views right now. And I don't even know. I don't think it's YouTube's fault even. It's just apparently summer's always the worst month for view or the worst time for views. Even like channels with like millions of subscribers are like only getting a couple thousand views. So you know, which still sounds like a lot, of course, because it is. But you know, in ratio terms, it's quite startling. That doesn't make much sense, to be honest. Yeah, well, it's true though. If you look at like go look at Markiplier. He's got like 20 something million, 20 something million, and right now, currently, most of his most recent videos, if you look at them, like barely break 100,000, which is in retrospect is a lot. Which is also, it is reassuring though if you're somebody like me who's a smaller YouTuber, because I was sitting here like, I have 70 something thousand subscribers, and none of my my videos are struggling to break 1,000 views. But when I looked at like Markiplier's channel, like one of the biggest users on the platform, and you see the comparison, you realize that like it's hitting everyone. Obviously, his numbers flat out, you're gonna think no, like, oh no, he still has like way more than me. Yeah, but he also has way more subscribers. So like, it says a lot about how the environment is right now. Well, no, you can ask people. Apparently, there's a lot of people who say that summer is the worst month for views. Like, you can call me crazy, but that's what I've heard. And that's what people say. It might not make sense, but that's the reality. Apparently. No, I'm just looking at the Area 51 memes. I'm not participating. That's stupid. You're literally walking into a zone where they say we are legally allowed to shoot you. I mean, I'm here for the memes, though. I'm living for the memes about it, but I don't know. What music are you into? I'm into all sorts of stuff, honestly. Like, you know how most people, they're just like, they always have a genre in mind when they say what their favorite music is? I do not. I am all over the place. Now I need to... to do... Okay. Ta-da! Would you look at that? His glances. Oh. No, I'd be covered up. That's fine. Alright. Now let's play the game. Can I actually shade this before Mob Crush crashes? Mob Crash. How do you feel about McDonald's? I like their fries, and that's literally it. Not really a big fan of McDonald's. I personally prefer other things than McDonald's. Personally. I'm going to be going to a con, yes, but I'm not going to be working it because I'm about to move out, and the con I'm going to it more just to go see my online buddies again. I'm going to San Japan this year. And I'm going primarily because it's for my birthday and I want to see my some of my internet friends again because we don't live very close, so we're gonna make a party out of it. They found me. McDonald's police. Okay. Sorry I'm being quiet. I'm still trying to read questions and stuff. Is JoJo a good show to get into or not? I've never seen it, so I have no opinion. Okay, uh, sorry I'm not talking much. If you guys want to ask questions, feel free. If I can find something to go on a tangent on, I'll go on it. I'm just focusing on trying to get I want these gifts to look nice. So Red X from the Good Teen Titans? He's him, but with glasses? I don't know who that is. Do you play D&D? I don't play D&D like how most people play D&D. I am DMing a session with my friends. I have there's 2 streams on that right now, and we're going to do another one hopefully Sunday. But that one is not... If you want traditional D&D, don't watch it, because we aren't doing traditional D&D with that one. But yeah, I do like... I like the more roleplay side of D&D. I don't really like the more technical, like, mathy side of D&D, where it's like, where it's all technical and there's all these, like, different steps you have to go through to set up your character. Like, that's always the part that kind of kills it for me. But I like the more, I'd do more D&D sessions if I got such an opportunity to do some. But sadly, I don't really like doing traditional D&D as much, so, you know. But if it was a friend who asked me to do more traditionally one, depending how traditional it was, I might still do it. But I have not been offered such a thing, so, you know. For now, I'll stick to DMing one. DMing one in my world, with my weird species, with all of our memes. Any opinion on the Pokemon Sword and Shield shenanigans? Not really anything, like, unique. I don't know. I don't really follow Pokemon news so much. I might say, like, oh, that's cool or that's cute, but I'm not really, like, a huge, like, keeping an eye on it, all the bits of news and stuff. If I hear about it, I hear about it. If I don't, I don't. It looks like you're having a fun time. That's the important thing. It is indeed, Ski. Do you play Minecraft? Sometimes I'll go, like, do a mini game thing in in a large server or something like that, but I don't usually play it that much. I've always wanted to more play it with people, but I just don't really have a lot of friends who consistently do it, so I don't really play it all that much. You know what? We're going to commit. We're going to commit. We're just going to shade that whole thing. Boom. All right. Second layer. Let's go. What's my zodiac sign? I'm a Virgo. Love the art you're doing. Thank you. I appreciate it. Do you play any RPGs? Not any currently. Do you agree with the... Okay, well, here's an interesting question. All right. Do you agree with the it's rude to compare artists' characters to other characters thing? As an artist myself, and I don't personally care when people do it to me, but I've seen others get so mad. For me, it depends on context, because I've had situations where it is extremely irritating. I don't consider it entirely rude unless it's like you're trying to say that, like, oh, you totally stole this character and the characters are, like, barely similar at all, like, just basic concepts similar. You know, I don't consider it so much as rude as I just get so, annoyed sometimes with it. I jokingly compare my characters to others all the time. I've made jokes before where I'll watch something and I'll realize I have a character that's exactly like something in there and I'll think it's funny. You know, I don't really care. I don't mind comparisons in general. I just think the two things that just get on my nerves personally is when it's constant and people don't seem that like they're not clever for like making the comparison. Like I got it once when I designed one of my character's parents. And it was during the time when Hamilton was a big thing. And I designed, which I had never seen at the time, mind you, and I literally designed her father to look like the most generic guy from that time period and setting because he wasn't supposed to, that's what he's supposed to kind of be, was a generic guy. And 50% of those fucking comments were just about, oh my god, he looks like Alexander Hamilton. And I almost disabled my comments because it was so annoying. Because, like, listen, the first time I'm like, oh yeah, I guess he does. I guess they're both brunettes with time-appropriate outfits, you know? But, like, after a while, it was just so many people, it was driving me insane. Like, just, I don't know, listen, guys, if you ever are looking at an art piece and you see, if you can look 3 comments down and see 3 comments saying the exact thing you're about to say in terms of comparing somebody's character, like in terms of a reference or a joke, maybe just let it be. I don't know, because trust me, it gets so irritating. Which isn't, I don't just get that with character comparisons. I get it all the time on YouTube too. They're up here. Yeah, 1 second. Give me a second. I'll come back and I'll continue my tangent in a second. Chili's is fine. Sorry, okay, back to my tangent before my program crashes or something. Okay, so the other thing that really gets on my nerves is when people will compare my characters to another character, but, like, I cannot see at all where that comparison is coming from. Like, anywhere. The most recent example of this, I'm not going to name the person, but somebody, like, commented saying that, like, my Android characters, now obviously not the ones on YouTube, I should say, not their designs on YouTube, they're more current designs that are on DeviantArt. I swear their current designs will be on YouTube eventually, I swear. But they like commented in regard to my character's Chrome and Virus, saying like, oh, they look almost exactly like Alistair. 1 second. Oh, sorry, I just want my usual. Okay, sorry. Sorry. Anyway, but they were, like, saying that, like, Chrome and Virus looked like Alistair from Hazbin Hotel, and they even, like, when I said I don't see it, they sent pictures of him in fan art and stuff, as if that would, like, as if I didn't know what the character looked like, first of all, and second of all, it didn't, like, add anything to explain why they were making that comparison, because they don't look the same at all. Like, the only thing I could see was that there's, like, technically similarities with how their feet are drawn, even though Alistair's feet is a stylistic choice and Chrome and Virus's feet are actually how their feet are designed. Like, if they were real things, that's what their feet would look like. And not only that, but his hair, I guess the comparison was that his hair was similar to their ears. And, like, I could not understand it. And, like, that's the kind of stuff that does irritate me is when that somebody compares it as if it's like a super obvious comparison, but you like look at the characters side by side and you're just like, what are you talking about? You know, like that can bug me a little bit, because again, like I'll laugh if it's a comparison that I think is funny and that like is accurate. I compare my characters to things all the time. Like hell, I made a joke once that because I'd never seen Hellsing before, but when I did, I was just like, ha, Alucard and Vanessa look super similar because I was watching the abridged version, and I thought that was funny. You know, yeah. Apart from the ear tufts, yeah, and even then, like theirs is not hair; theirs are ears. Like they're not. It's their ears are not their hair. It's just ears. Like it's rabbit ears. Yeah, his hair is just hair. His hair isn't ears. But Chrome and viruses are. I don't know. It was just a weird like thing, and I tried to like ask the person, like I just kept telling them I don't see it, and rather than explain to me like what they were talking about, they just said like I don't even remember. I just like it was never cleared. I was just really confused, but like I don't really I just think those are just kind of irritating because it's like I don't like it just I don't see the comparison, you know? It just feels so random. But again, I don't mind, like, I don't think it's necessarily rude to say that, like, hey, this character looks like someone else's as, like, just a statement. But I also think that, like, depending on the circumstance, it can be extremely irritating to the artist. And also, like, you got to be careful how you phrase yourself when you say those kinds of things, because if you're a stranger saying that to a random artist online that like, oh, your character looks like this one, it can 100% online read like you're accusing them of character theft. So that's all I'll say, is that if you're going to say that, make sure you make it clear that you don't mean it as a character theft thing, because if you don't, it's really easy to misinterpret that online. So that's why a lot of artists get really... I mean, a lot of artists, the reason why they get so angry with it is probably more like me. It's out of an irritation thing. It's just a step further. Like, they've heard it so many times that it's just made them extremely angry to ever hear it, you know? Which happens. It just makes people jaded. Or it could just simply be that they think you're, like, accusing them of something, you know? Like, you're accusing them of character theft or something like that, you know what I mean? So there's that. But I will say, before you ever like do that, you should probably just try and make sure that your joke wasn't already made in the same in the same image description, because that's kind of the easiest way to irritate somebody. And I'm not saying that because I don't expect people to go through every single comment to make sure nobody else made or they can feel a disconnect from the character they put time into. Yeah, that's also true. It's really hard, like, it can really, like, screw up the attachment to a character when you can't see them as anything else than what they've been compared to now. But yeah, I will say that, like, I don't expect people... I'm not somebody who's going to expect somebody to read every single comment on a picture with 100 comments just to make sure nobody said it before. I'm just saying that if you look at like the most recent couple of comments and they say the exact same thing that you're planning to say in terms of like oh, this looks like this character, or like, oh, insert joke here, like then maybe you should just save it for another time because the joke's already been made, kind of thing. But you know, hello Michi, hello. Welcome as I suffer and try and work on art. And I hope that Mob Crush will last long enough to end this stream. You have. It's flipping 5 o'clock my time and you're finally awake. What tips would you give to someone who wants to start taking art seriously, aka not just as a hobby? I've always been good since I've been drawing for a year, but I wanted to start studying it for real. My advice, first of all, would be, would just be to look up any kind of, like, professional advice, anything like that, because you'll hear a lot of the same things, and there's a reason why you'll hear a lot of the same things in terms of advice. So, if you hear the same kind of advice a lot, that usually means that a lot of professionals has said it. Not always, but a lot of the time. So, if you're like, I'd look into professional advice, depending where in art you want to get into. Listen to like what they say on how to improve your work, stuff like that. Definitely take some time to like properly sit down and do some studies and things like that. All that good stuff, because it can be frustrating to hear the same advice over and over again, but typically if you want to do something professionally, there's a reason why professionals say the same things over and over again, is because it's usually the most helpful. So there's that. Depending what career you would want to get into, research ways to help do that, because there's differences depending on what you do. If you want to be a freelance artist, for example, then the key to being a successful freelancer is promote yourself, promote yourself, promote yourself. Like, do everything you can to don't like draw for free exposure. That's not what I'm saying. But do whatever you can to promote yourself, put yourself out there, make connections within the like freelancing world, all that kind of stuff. If your goal is to do like children's book illustrations or something like that, then look into how to get into a career like that. What kind of skills are you going to need? What do people look for? And hone your skills in relation to that. If you want to get into animation or something like that, then pick an area of the field that you're passionate about and go get practicing with it, and go make sure you look at advice from people who do in those areas, because different things require, people don't seem to realize that like the skills it takes to be an animator is different than the skills it takes to be like an illustrator, because typically with illustrations they want like high quality still images, but with animation it might actually serve you better to be more stylized and to be more simple, because rarely in animation are you going to be asked to do something super, super detailed and complicated. And in fact, in animation, it's actually preferred you be able to do multiple different styles. You know, those like crazy people who tell you that like, don't you dare try and draw in another artist's style. How dare you steal an artist's style? But in the actual animation industry, they want you to be able to replicate another artist's style exactly, because if you're starting in the animation industry, chances are you're not going to be drawing in your art style. You're going to be drawing in the art director's style that they've chosen for the show or game or whatever. I'm thinking about having a career for games or comics. Well, those are still two very different things. So I'd just look into both and see what better suits you. Comics are typically going to be on the more illustraty side of things, while games are going to be on the more animaty side of things. And a more technical side of things. Alright, that's all the shadows of me. Well, I'm gonna do a quick little... Gotta make him look as ominous and shady as possible, am I right? Because he's a murderer. That's his character. He's a murderer, from what I know. Murder husband. How do you feel about people who have tattoos of other people's art and don't ask for permission? I mean, that's not my place to say. For me personally, I would like somebody to ask before they go get a tattoo of it, because I want them, to me it's an acknowledgement of like, I want to use your artwork for this tattoo, whatever. It's an acknowledgement that like they didn't come up with it, you know what I mean? So like me personally, I would prefer to be asked, but I can't really give a stance on how I feel about like how other artists would feel, because I don't know how other artists would feel about that kind of thing. And I think it just depends on how the artist feels in those cases. But I mean, I generally think it's nice to ask about those things, because you didn't make that design, and now you're gonna be basically wearing it on your body, like essentially without like, the artist made it, and they're probably not going to pay for it, like to get to buy the design from them. So I think it should be a common courtesy to ask, but I think a lot of people don't understand that either, and I think we need to help educate people to more understand why you should do that, and why you should ask artists for permission for things, and why you shouldn't just use things that aren't yours. Do I want to do a bounce light? I'll do a bounce light. I'm going to do a bright red bounce light because it's edgy. Oh, you know what? Okay, just because I want to do a tangent about something, since I'm almost done here, or I'm getting close to being done here. Here's just a random tangent that like came to mind towards the beginning of this month, because I'm doing Art Fight, obviously, and other people are doing Art Fight this month because Art Fight is fun. Um, Yay, tangent. Yeah, well, like other people and myself are doing Art Fight this year, but I also saw some things talking about Art Fight from like why some people aren't doing it this year and that sort of stuff, and I just want to say, y'all, if you're on a website where the encouragement is to draw other people's characters for points for your team to win, and you're salty that you didn't get anything from anybody else, but you didn't actually do anything for anybody else, then I don't think you should be on Art Fight to begin with. Like, you didn't join it for the right reasons. Like, because I'm not calling them out by name, because just a random person on Toy House or whatever was saying that, like, they weren't going to do Art Fight because last year nobody drew their characters, and I feel like my characters are too obscure for anybody to want to draw them, and now it's made me feel shittier about my characters as a whole, and yada yada yada. But then they admitted that they didn't draw anybody else's character on the site. And it's like, dude, like, you didn't even draw anybody else's characters, and you're complaining that nobody drew art for you? I mean, listen, I think it's okay to feel like it sucks that you drew things for other people and you feel like nobody ever drew anything for you, and that sucks, and I think it's okay to say that it sucks. I don't think that you should like try and say other people are the bad guys in that case, because typically on Art Fight people draw what is fun, or they draw stuff for their friends, or whatever it may be. So I don't think you have room to say that everybody else is horrible or blame everybody else for being horrible. But I think that if you drew something for somebody else, or like you drew stuff for other people and you didn't ever get anything back in return for it, or nobody ever attacked you back or anything like that, I think it's okay if you want, like, I think it's all right. And I think it's totally fair to be like, well, that's kind of disappointing, you know? And I think that's fine. I don't have any problems with people who are disappointed or sad that they didn't get anything while they did Art Fight, even though they did stuff for other people. Because it can suck to see all these other people who get just loads and loads of artwork of their characters the whole time, and then, like, you got nothing. You know, like, it does suck. And I think that's fine to... Oh, dear, my dog. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if you're not even going to draw anything for anybody else on Art Fight, and then you're going to complain about how upset it made you that nobody drew your characters, you did not join it for the right reasons, and you are very like, you have some very unreasonable expectations for a bunch of strangers on a website. Like, the point of Art Fight, it's almost like Christmas in a sense. The point of Art Fight is that you're supposed to, it encourages you to draw for other people and not expect anything in return. So, like, if you are on Art Fight because you want free artwork, then for nothing, especially if you want free artwork for nothing, then you're not on it for the right reasons, and you don't really understand why the website exists. It's not for you to get fan art. It is for you, like, and other people to just have fun and draw shit for each other if you feel like it, and just have fun, you know, in a very friendly competition kind of setting. So I don't know. It was just a really, really irritating. Like, it made me so irritated to read that post, because it's just like, really, you're going to act as if you are, like, the victim in this situation, that, like, people not drawing your characters has made you feel so shitty about them, even though you didn't draw anything for anybody else. And they even said that the reason why they didn't draw anything was because, like, well, I didn't feel like my art was going to justify those characters properly. Like, dude, like, how do you know that the other people who didn't draw your characters didn't feel the same way? Why are you the only one who's allowed to feel that way and feel justified in it? It just, I don't know, it irritated me a lot. And again, I think it's totally justified if you drew stuff for other people and you just kind of feel a little upset that you didn't really get anything in return for it, and that, like, nobody drew anything for you. You know, like, I think it's totally okay to feel upset about that. But if you're not even going to bother drawing anything for anybody else, then I'm sorry, you don't have any room to complain, because you didn't even do anything for anybody else. So in that regard, I don't think you have any room to, like, kind of search for pity. It's the same people who complain about not getting commissions but openly admit they never get commissions. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And, like, again, I think it's fine if you don't want to commission people, but you can't really complain about other people not buying your commissions if you're not somebody who gets commissions, like, or wants to get commissions. You need to support people to get support. You don't have to go crazy all the time. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't even need to be a big thing either. You don't have to spend $100 on somebody just to get, like, commissions back or something like that. You just need to know that, like, if you're not willing to do something, you shouldn't expect other people to do it, is basically what I'm saying. If you're not willing to draw art for random strangers, then you shouldn't expect random strangers to draw art for you. Same as, like, if you're not willing to spend art on random artists because you can draw it yourself, which is the normal excuse I usually see, then you shouldn't expect them to want to pay you to draw something that they could quote-unquote draw themselves. So, you know. Can you spare us a moment to teach you your way of shading? I don't know. What about it? Yeah, that's a cool little lighting effect. That's fun. All right. So I can answer maybe a few more questions before the stream crashes, but yeah. I mean, I'm willing to tell people how I shade. I just need it to be more specific. There we go. I got another done, guys. Wow. I got 2 more to go. What color do you usually use to shade? My 2 go-to colors to shade is like this color, about something in this range of color for shadows, and then like something in this range of colors for lighting. And it does change though sometimes depending on what I'm doing. Who's left? Hang on. I got the only 2 left I have is this lady and this guy, and then I'll be done. So yeah. When you're done, will you still make more? I mean, I'll live stream more. I want to get back at, like, do more live streams and more art streams and stuff. I was considering doing another, like, kind of doing another, like a draw your mutuals characters, but I don't know if I'm going to end up live streaming those because it's so hard to sit down and live stream sometimes. And I feel bad if I don't live stream all of them. So I don't know if I'll do another, a live stream it, but I might do another Draw Your Mutuals OCs with other mutuals that I didn't do. You do it so smoothly, like, how do you blur it? Well, typically it's like for example, this red thing, it was just like, here's like, you have the solid shadows, and then on top of it you just have a faded out airbrush. So it looks like there's a little bit of a fade in there, and makes it look a little bit more glowy. But other than that, what I typically do is I do a mix of like kind of cellar shading and kind of painting-ish shading, and that's because I use this hard airbrush, because that way you can get really hard, crisp shadows if you want. You can erase what you need to, or you can get softer, more gentle shadows, and you can erase if you need to be gentle about it. So I usually use this hard airbrush because it lets me get kind of the best of both worlds in shading. So you can make it look soft but also have those hard edges, which you can't really do with a normal airbrush, because if you use like a medium airbrush, for example, you can get like hard, solid colors, but they're going to be all fuzzy at the edges. On the contrary, if you use a like, where is it? Like a pen, like many people use. That's not a good example. If you use a pen like most people use, you can get hard cell shadows, but you can't get any of those soft shadows without having to go back and erasing it or fading it out or anything like that. So if you have access to any kind of brush that's like a hard airbrush of some kind, I would recommend using it, because that's the one. Or if you want to try it out, I'd recommend trying it out, or just playing around with the other airbrushes. And seeing what you could do. Shading's often not, like, you're not going to find one brush that shades for everything. I still go back with my shading and use, like, airbrushes and stuff for more generalized shadows. And also for lighting, like, how I do hair is I use my pencil brush, because I've started using it for more things, and I just use pencil brush, and I do a bunch of little lines like this in the flow of the hair. So, just play around with some things. Swift. Suave. Thank you. I rely more on shadows for drawings rather than lightings, but I've been trying to do bounce lighting a lot more, or that secondary light source a lot more, with moderate to good success. Are you excited for the new Addams Family movies or not? I'm excited for it. I'm interested in it. I think it's interesting. I like the fact that the animated style isn't Disney. Isn't like every Disney and Pixar movie ever. So it's I think it's an interesting style. I think the only thing that bumps me about the new Addams Family movies, I just feel like they made Wednesday's head a little bit too narrow. Like, it's just a little bit too narrow in my opinion, because when I look at her, sometimes I have a hard time for her, like, not to get lost when I'm trying to look at her face, because it's just so thin. If it was me, I would have made her face just a little bit wider and not so long, But other than that, I'm interested in it. I'm excited for it. I used to use it, Metabang. How did you start on Procreate? Just experiment or any tutorials? I have an app. I started with it by just experimenting. I mean, I did have some stuff in mind, like in translation. Like by the time I started using Procreate, I was already using my pencil brushes on Photoshop all the time. So obviously the first thing I looked for was the pencil brushes, and thankfully the technical pencil. I did tweak mine a little bit since. But I liked the technical pencil and it worked really good for line art. I have tweaked it a little bit, just a little to fix my specific needs. But you know, other than that, it's just been a lot of playing around with it. I've actually also, as you can see, I've downloaded a lot of brushes since then, which are really fun to play with. Like I have this cool little spotty one now. It does like bubbly bubbles. I have this cool one that does like a beaded curtain kind of thing, which is cool. I found this one which I'm trying to use for scales, because scales can be a little bit hard, and I don't like drawing every individual scale, because then it usually doesn't end up looking nice, and then I have to scrap the whole thing. Found this cool little diamondy brush. I found some of these are good for like kind of naturey things. There's this rocky one that I haven't been able to use yet. Oh, there's this magic dust one, which is nice. Ooh, magic dust. Woo. What else is there? There's this one, which I think will be cool for some background textures and stuff. Then there's a few rain brushes in here, which should be nice. There is a rain brush in Procreate, but these ones are just a little bit different in how they're designed, so that's nice. And I've been making some texture brushes. I've made some of my own. Like I made one for checkerboard, because God, it's so hard to do checkerboards, and Procreate, the closest they have to a checkerboard is like this, but then you have to fill in all the spaces. So I went and made one myself. I made this pattern in a different app, and I'm like, oh, that looked cool, so I put it in here to just use for random things. I found this kind of like snowflakey one. I got this like fancy pattern. I got a few different fancy patterns because I got tired of using the exact same Victorian one over and over again. I have, or well, this one is in Procreate, but this one's like a crystally one that I set up. This one's like a bark texture one. What else is there? Here's one I use for like different kinds of textures. I call it my Chinese one only because the design I looked up to find this brush was Chinese patterns. It was for a specific thing, so that's why it's called that. But I use it for other kinds of things as well. This is my good old Victorian brush that I use for way too much. Oh yeah, I'm revealing all my secrets. Just you wait. There is a brush pack that I want to buy that I saw recently that was like a nature brush pack kind of thing that has a lot of nature textures and stuff in that in there, and I really want to buy it while it's on sale, and hopefully it is still on sale. But yeah, there was also this one that I downloaded, which is also scales, but I haven't quite used it yet. But yeah. Oh, there's pattern brush. Yeah. I mean, they just help make workflow a lot smoother, typically. Especially if you're doing just, like, commissions, or if you just need a quick background for something, or whatever. Or if you don't need any kind of, like, specific pattern, or if you just want to make something look fancy without, too much. Oh, yeah, these are some I made recently. I haven't used them yet, but, like, I like complicated patterns, but I don't like drawing complicated patterns. So I found some that I'm just going to use for, like, they're for backgrounds and stuff like that. And I did find an app that I'm probably going to use to make some custom patterns if I ever want them. So, yeah. But these are some of these. They're just fancy little patterns I wanted to have. Yeah, so if you ever want, Procreate actually makes it really easy to make custom brushes. All you got to do is go here. If you have you can click grain source is going to be, like if you want to do, for example, if you want to do a solid pattern, for example, if you wanted to do like a repeating pattern, which would be like the, hang on, let me go find them. If you wanted to do a repeating pattern like this, then what you would do is that you'd want to make your grain source the checkerboard and then make the shape source just like an airbrush or something like that. And then you can play around with the settings of that. And if you wanted to make a pattern like this that's like a stamp, all you would have to do is make the shape source the actual thing, and then make the grain source just a solid color. I'd also tell you, with Procreate, what they do, it's different for different programs. But this is just what you do for Procreate. In Procreate, what you do, what it will require you is it requires the pattern, the actual pattern you want to show up to be white. Like Photoshop's the total opposite. Photoshop requires you the thing to be black in order for it to register. But for Procreate, what you want to do is it goes with first of all, it goes with gray tones. So if you're making a pattern, you want to make sure it's in gray tones. But basically, if you for example, if I wanted to just make a brush right now, what you'd want to do is you'd either want to have it on a transparent background, or if for some reason, like, you're trying to get a pattern off like a free pattern off the internet, but there's no transparent version of it, you just want to make sure the background is solid black, because that will not register and that will count as transparent. And then if you want a design, the design needs to be an actual white. Or if you want to do something cool and have like, for example, actually, this pattern right here, this fancy one, if you'll notice, some of this is naturally dark, like more transparent than the other part. And if you just like, if you kept pressing on it, eventually it'll all become white. But some of this is actually like automatically more faded out than the other, and you would simply achieve that by having one part of this be bright white, but the other part of this be a little bit more gray, and that'll translate as the white being the solid color and the gray being slightly faded out by default. I hope that helps or something for anybody who uses Procreate and wants to make some custom brushes. There's also an app. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but I have it on my iPad now for if I ever want to make a cool little design for more patterns and stuff. It's the same app I used to make this little thing when I was playing around with it. There's an app that'll let you do reflections and like, you know, the thing where it's like you could make a pattern that's symmetrical all around the edges. And you can use that, and if you play around with the color settings enough, you can get it where it has a black background and white ink on it, so then you can basically just transfer it to Procreate and make a brush out of it, and it can be really, really cool, and you can basically make your own custom brushes. But yeah, so if you ever want to, and also if you even like draw a pattern that you like or something like that, you can turn it into a brush if you want to keep that pattern, but, you know. Yeah, I have fun sometimes. Sometimes I'll just get days where I'll just sit down and I'm like, I really want a new brush. So yeah, that's my Procreate tip of the day for anyone who wants to make custom brushes. There was an update it had actually recently. A lot of these brushes you see throughout here are actually rather new because they had a big update at one point where they added a ton of new brushes. One of my favorites is this Galaxy one. I haven't really used it yet, but it's one of my favorites because, like, oh, look at that, you just start out with blue and it looks blue, but then you keep doing it and it gets lighter on the inside and it looks really, really cool.